This is the Front Porch podcast. I'm Jesica Alarcon, and today I'm here with Aaron Anderson at Purple Pig Eats. So thank you for all of this and letting us disrupt your business a little bit, and welcome.
Well, thanks for having me and the business too. It's definitely like right in front. So
yeah, it is. So to get started, can you tell me a little bit about how you ended up here in Oak Park?
Sure thing. I'm originally from Phoenix, Arizona. Born and raised there. Was just about turning 30. Moved a few places. Was down in San Diego with my ex-wife. We decided to move up to Sacramento area. So we moved up to Elk Grove, and I was living there. Working for Buckhorn, I was their executive chef. I was just learning the Sacramento area and had no idea what my plan was going to be. And then found myself kind of on my own again and thinking about some serious things. The corporate stuff kind of was the drainer, and definitely one of those things that can affect your relationships. It made me pretty vacant in the home, and where I just wasn't there a lot, and I was always at the job, and it took a toll. So when I had that opportunity to kind of really think about what I wanted to do, I was just sitting around in my apartment. I saw some farmers market, way down in Florin where I was living at the time, and I saw these pop-ups. And people hawking the food and stuff. I'm like, that's it. Mm-hmm. I used to talk about doing a hot dog cart or something like that for on and on and on and on, just silly stuff I'm gonna open a hot dog cart and it'll be great, work for myself. And people are like, wow, you're a chef, that's crazy. I'm like, you make really good hot dogs. I've seen it. I've seen it at the ballpark. People are doing it. It's a good thing. So ultimately, it was the whole concept was just to be able to be there for my children when I need to be and when I want to be, and make those calls if for my own family time, and that was one of the only ways, as I could see it. And I also had really great ideas for food, and I'm a really good cook. And I felt like this was my opportunity to, go out there on my own, And so there was that. I came up with that. I started drawing pictures in my books of the pop-up. Had no idea what I was going to call it yet. Just something, I was coming up with all kinds of names. I knew it was going to be barbecue-esque. It became something that I fell in love with. I started studying barbecue in a worldwide spectrum, not just American. So I got into what barbecue was in India and Africa and in Japan and China, in the Philippines, in Hawaii, and it's everywhere. In Mexico, down in the Caribbean, down in Cuba. It's a technique that is it's ancient.
Yes.
It's one of the oldest ways of cooking known to man, I think, is putting, food on fire. So I became really obsessed with that. I thought this was it's so rudimentary, so primitive, it's so fascinating, and it's so it's in every culture, and it's just as important. Mm-hmm. So the yakitoris and stuff like that is just as important in Japan as the American barbecue and the ribs and the Texas and the all that stuff here. It really is. And so I was like, that's what I'm going to do. Yeah. But I'm going to incorporate those worldly elements into that. I'm classically trained in French cooking, so I have all that as well too, in that background. So I'm like, all right, this is all going into this, Mm-hmm. All right, this is. So then, what do I call this? And then, my oldest daughter Riley was over, and we were just playing games or whatever, like colors, and she was like just a little over 3 or something like that. So what those things you do with a 3-year-old. And I remember she started saying something about like purple pigs and stuff, and I'm like, ooh, that's a good one. And one thing I remember when I was working with Buckhorn, I got pretty chummy with ownership there, and the owner there told me one time, if you own a business and you can successfully pair like an animal and a color or something like that, it will more than likely do okay.
Interesting.
Yeah, it is kind of a bargaining thing.
Okay.
And so little things like that I always would put in the back of my mind, like that's good advice. So that instantly went bling, and I'm like, ooh, purple pig. And so I just kind of wrote that down, and I started playing with that. And then it came into just being like the purple pig, because I was saying that I'm the purple pig type of thing. It was it was kind of egotistical in the very beginning, and it was, natural chef thing. I'm going to do what a chef does. And then after a while, once it became something, so I met my late wife Allison, and I was actually just doing catering, and I was telling her all this stuff, and she thought it was great. She goes, yeah, this is great. I love this. This is exactly what I want to do too, in addition to what I'm already doing. Like, let's do this, honey. So 6 months, maybe 6 months into our relationship, we just do it. We started with just doing some small community events and things like that. We weren't even into the farmers market circuit yet. That was the following year. And then the following year is when we got into that. But up into that point, you brought up earlier, like one of the first times.
So that was when there was the shooting at the park during the Little League games.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then the next night, the community kind of came to have a picnic and, reclaim the space, basically.
Yeah. I had just moved into the neighborhood. I was just moved in with Allison. Allison was already living in the neighborhood, and that happened, and we were still kind of in this creation of stuff, and she was really egging me on to be like, hey, let's go up too, and this is let's help contribute. Let's show that we're on the same page, and this is our park, and we shouldn't have to be afraid. I grew up in South Phoenix. And where I grew up in South Phoenix was a pretty tough neighborhood, much like the Oak Park neighborhood was and has been in that reputation. You always had to look over your shoulder. There was a horrific park that you had to cross through to get to the other side, and a canal they had to walk down, which was very scary. Because people would jump out at you, and it was gang-ridden. It was all kinds of stuff, gangs, drugs, you name it. And oddly enough, it's still kind of like that. I go back every time I go back home. I drive through my old neighborhood. It looks a little better, but you still see those same issues. So it just took me back to that too. And I'm like, well, this is my new neighborhood. Absolutely. Like, let's just do it, and it was a good time, and it was our first little introduction to us in the like, people are like, who are these people? Where do they come from? Because that's kind of what happens, I think, with these little businesses. Another person in the neighborhood or who lives in the neighborhood is Gabe from Beverly Beverages. And a similar thing, he had this great idea with his shrubs, and pop-ups, farmers markets, events, boom, 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 and so that's kind of how I ended up here. We just tried to stay constant in the neighborhood. I always wanted to open something up in here. I would always be looking and just dreaming, and even if I didn't have the resources, I tried this get in here 4 years ago, I believe, and it didn't happen. and I take that as maybe it just wasn't the right time.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, Allison passed away, and it kind of like left me in a position of what to do. I was still doing farmers markets, this and that, but then I was just like, I needed to take a break.
Yeah, of course.
And
That's
think about a lot of that
understandable.
stuff. I had to really spend a lot of time with my children and with Eveline, and I didn't want to be caught up with the hustle.
Yeah.
But it gave me an immense amount of time to reflect on what we were doing, what we were trying to start. Some of the things that Allison was doing was like she was supportive employment. It was always been a big advocate on that, and so we would always be like, we'd take people in to work with us that couldn't get a job in other places. And just like right now, we have individuals that are employed here that tears me up because they do really, really good. We have people here that we give them the benefit of the doubt, because if they go somewhere else, they won't get that opportunity. And if I can be a second chance, that's what I'm going to do. That's stuff that like I picked up from her. And she was a big drive on that. She's like, through that time, I was like, well, I started going back and doing the markets. I said, oh, I'm back. Here we are. And when I think it was like I made a post about like I'm trying to do this, but I just don't have it. I need this much money, and it's just I don't know how to get it.
Yeah.
I've hustled and hustled and hustled, but at this point I just don't know how to get it. And then somebody made a comment that's, I am the blah, blah, blah at the Goodwill. Send me, here, I sent you a private message with my information. And so I typed up a letter and this and that, and then passed it through, and he was able to get me a grant awarded.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Right? It was just enough. It was just enough to get the permits, the space, everything. I was like, wow, what's happening here? It's also kind of like when I really started checking out City Church here and there, going to their events and things and stuff. That's kind of another like thing that started happening to me in the neighborhood. And so I went back to it. Through that, I just found myself, helping a lot. Like, like in that predicament, like people would always just be like, want to help me, and just come in and do an event with me just to make sure that it went. And then I got really solid with Matt here, who's my business partner in this place. He's the other half. I can't take all the credit. Really can't. He's literally half of this business now, since he's come in. And so the food that's coming out of here is a complete marriage of both of our experience. Yeah. It allows me to have these types of conversations and also, go out and do what I've been doing in the community.
Yeah.
Because it's become very important to me. I this past year when the pandemic happened, oh my goodness.
Well, yeah.
Last year in the spring, when all went down, I had an event, a huge event down at my catering spot where I've been doing catering all along. And that's just been kind of what's been floating the business, just barely.
Yeah.
All it would do is like pay my rent, my permits, my insurance, and my food. And after that, I'm like, nothing left. I'm like, well, and people are like, that's what it is. That's what you're up against.
It is.
And it's not easy. No. But it was enough to just keep it breathing. And so we had this big event. They even upped the guarantee that morning, the morning of the big shutdown. So like that morning I got a phone call and they're like, oh yeah, they just added 20 more people.
Oh gosh.
I'm like, okay, I really don't have that on hand, so I am going to have to go out and like buy a couple more things. And they're like, okay, I'm just letting you know. So I went out and did that, ran out really early, got it all purchased, prepped. and then took my quick break before the whole crew came in. And then when I'm on my way back to the kitchen to meet the crew and get everything ready to fire off for the banquet, my phone rings. It's my partner down there, and he's like, "Well, Aaron, I got some bad news." I'm like, "They canceled, didn't they?" And he goes,
No.
"Yeah." And he goes, "Everything's prepped, ready to go. So what do we do?" Fortunately, we all worked things out with everyone, but it left me with this massive amount of food. So I'm sitting around, and at that evening, my dad's like, "Well, I don't see why don't you just do what you've been doing with the unhoused meals, but clearly you can take it to a bigger level now because you got all this. How many meals can you put out?" And I was like, "Well, we could probably push out 200 people today, or something." So that's what we did. So the next day I went out there and I blew it all out, and then whatever I had left, I was like calling people up saying, I was giving it to my neighbors on my street. I was like, "I got all these vegetables, prep vegetables ready to go." I can't do any much more with it. I'm giving it out to everywhere. It's just coming out of my ears. And kind of from that point on, I started doing that. At that point, I was full-fledged in City Church too, and all that. Pastor Mark calls me up, "Aaron, Food Bank has a bunch of ground beef. Can you do anything with it?" "Yeah, sure." I was thinking about what we can do. Break it out into small things and hand it out or whatever. Ultimately, it went to feeding unhoused. And I think out of that ground beef I got, it was like a few hundred pounds, or a couple hundred pounds, I think.
Wow.
I've fed over 1,400 people.
Oh my gosh, that is so many people.
Yeah, and that was just off of food donated to me. I would go out and buy some stuff too. Like I would buy the pasta or buy the sauce, the stuff that makes spaghetti sauce or whatever. And we were literally just making spaghetti dinners at least once or twice a week down at my kitchen there, and just handing them out. Another nonprofit called Show Up that does showers for unhoused. They started utilizing, us, and they made a budget for it to make sure that it would keep happening.
Yeah.
And then it kind of, they had to move around some areas, this and that, and the reality is with helping the unhoused community, even with distributing meals, is technically it's illegal. It got to some points levels to where I was getting chased out of areas. I was getting followed by sheriffs, especially when you go under the bridge.
Okay.
When you go into that bridge and head under there, that's all monitored by the sheriffs. So that was my big spot. So we would make all these meals at Old Town and basically run them all the way down Broadway. So from Front Street all the way down to Alhambra, we would distribute 150 meals a day. Wow. All the way down. And then there's some times where I'd be out there, my car's filled with all these containers and, sheriffs. So I got to pack up and leave. I've never been fined or gotten a ticket, and, everyone knows I do it. City council knows I do it. The neighborhood knows I do it. It's it's fine. I think it's just how you handle it and being respectful. And I'm not the only one.
No.
And that's another thing I started seeing too, is tons of people doing it after through this whole situation. Then we got on. Then through that we got on. Out of nowhere, this Great Plates Delivered thing happened. And I think that's really what saved the business, was everything that got us into this area, and is enabling me to continue doing the community stuff that I'm doing, and also, like be in the operation here, bring people in that can thrive.
Yeah.
And
So the Great Plates was preparing meals for people who are shut in or who needed help during the pandemic.
Yes,
Okay.
in a nutshell.
Yeah.
But it was geared towards the senior community.
Okay, that's right. That's
Again, so last spring, was the farmers market was beginning. I was told the everything's kind of changed, so I had to go in making these prepackaged meals like TV dinners. So if you've ever been to the farmers market and have had the Purple Pig Eats food before, especially from the year prior and years prior to that, you knew what we were doing. Like, you would see me grabbing the vegetables in the morning, and prepping them, cooking the meats right there on site. It was fresh as fresh can be. And then here I'm
you had to prepare them beforehand and bring them in.
Preparing them, packaging them, putting labels on them on what's in it, and heating instructions, and which was great, because people could take it home and eat it for later.
Yeah. Kept you in business.
And it kept me in business, and it was still fresh. It was made, done as fresh as you can be with doing that stuff. Follow, you have to follow protocols with cooling things down like that and packaging and stuff like that, because you're getting into a whole other. I used to do in-flight catering, so that was one of the things that, like, oh, this is just like in-flight. You just got to treat it like that.
Yeah. So you were prepared and knew what to do to be able to prepare pre-made food and distribute it safely and
exactly.
legally.
It required me to have to keep a log of these meals and how many were prepared on the day they're prepared, at the time they're prepared, and have cooling logs that can match up with it, and so on. And I kept that on file forever. And that's all stuff that, like, you might not have to think about. Like, it really changed the whole scenario, but it opened the door. So all of a sudden I got a bird chirp about this Great Plates Delivered program. It's like, a couple people before it was really kind of being launched out, said, hey, there's something. They didn't really say what it was, because I don't think was a name for it. They said there's this thing happening. We just think you might be a great candidate for it. So as soon as the information is available, I'm going to forward it to you. And
that's a great opportunity.
It was one of the best opportunities.
Yeah.
I think an individual could have gotten. Right.
So just one thing, we're about to wrap up.
Yes.
So
sorry, I know I'm a chit chatter.
So I just want to make sure that if there's anything you really want to share about you and your business that you want the neighborhood to know.
This is a place where it's for the community, it's for families. It's about us. Come down, hang out. It's a talk to me. Talk to anyone here, see what we're doing, let me in, if there's things going on in the neighborhood that, might need attention, whatever it may be. I always like to keep my eyes and ears open for that. And we're trying to really instill what the Merlinos family was doing here in the beginning, and what sustained them for so long. We're trying to take that same approach and just keep it simple and easy and fun. And so however we can help as neighbors as well, too, and be an outreach, and if we see that somebody's having a hard time.
Yeah, well, you've certainly you've been in the neighborhood for quite a while now.
We were just on Capitol Public Radio for our outreach on being a CDC Alchemist has listed us as a cooling center.
Oh, okay.
On their website.
Got it. Okay.
So we are an area where you can cool off or whatever. Or even if we see something's wrong, we'll call, get help for someone.
Oh, that's
that's the important thing.
That's just generous and beautiful, and shows that you are really invested in everybody who's here and not just the people who are coming to spend their money and buy your food, which they should.
Right.
Because it's delicious.
Yeah, please do, because it ultimately enables us to do that.
Yeah, it's supporting a lot more than just your business. I mean, it is supporting you and your family and your employees' families, but it's also
all these people here working and
helping serve a lot of our neighbors.
What people are giving to us as a business is absolutely enabling us to give back to the community in all kinds of ways. So that's just kind of, it's like that handshake there. And so I am so grateful to be in this neighborhood and be able to give back like that. And it's been a dream since I've lived in Oak Park to I fell in love with this neighborhood. The minute I moved, I just absolutely fell in love with it.
Where are you located, just so everybody knows where it is we're standing?
Absolutely. We are located on the corner of 3rd Avenue and Stockton. The physical address is on the side there is 2790 Stockton Boulevard. We're right in front of the VFW Post 67, which I always want to say is open to the public for their, for their bar and everything like that. And they're also booking for events too. So I always try to
plug them,
promote them as well too. They're great people. And then our hours are Monday through Thursday, 8 to 3. Fridays we're 8 to 8. And then starting this Saturday, which I'll be throwing the post out today, and it's going to be every other week, we are going to do a Saturday morning Carolina-style barbecue.
Okay.
Starts at 8 a.m. till we sell out.
Okay.
Limited being made, the first one, so get out for that.
Come early.
Yeah, come early, please. If you get here at 10 o'clock, might not be enough. Okay. And then this Sunday, we also do the breakfast here. So we do breakfast at the VFW every other Sunday as well, too.
All right.
So it's and that's 8:30 to 12:30. So.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you
so
for
much,
having
Aaron,
me
for your
today.
time.